someone who might not understand him. I think it just takes him a little time to realize, okay, yeah, this guy knows what's going on. I'll tell you what I think people at first think is that he's not mentally, with it.
Here.
Hey. Hey. God. Oh. Hey there.
So when he tells me something, I can recognize the word because I've either heard it before or I've heard him reference something before. People who come across Eric for the first time aren't lucky enough to have like this whole framework of knowing his history. So they're really going to struggle to understand him.
I'm just down.
One day.
I'm weird. I'm baby.
I was a baby.
Baby. War. War. A war. War. Uh-huh. War. Good. My leg. Good.
Your legs were good
Yeah.
when you were a baby?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, now you'll just talk over this. So, what is their family history like? Where did they start?
So this family came from the Central African Republic. The mommy's name is Nestorine, and this is Carol. And they came here about 2 years ago.
Okay.
They left because of a war, and they were in a refugee camp for about 5 years.
And what is Eric? What does Eric have?
Eric was born on the way to the camps, so Mom had to flee her home. She was pregnant with Eric, and he was born on the road. Unfortunately, when he was born, it was under a lot of duress, and he suffered some brain damage. And he now has cerebral palsy. He's very smart. His cognition is normal, but his body, he can't control his muscle movements.
Okay.
Hey, Eric. Eric,
What?
have you ever used a computer at school?
No.
No?
No.
No good? Do you want to? Think Will could teach you how to use a computer?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Okay.
What would you do with a computer? Hmm? What would you do?
What?
Write? You would write?
Yeah.
What would you write?
I did.
A story? Would you write your name? Would you write a story? Whoa, whoa, whoa. Come back, come back, come back. We better go get that boy.
The biggest frustration for Eric is to accurately point to something on the computer with his finger or with his hand so that he can change the page, point to the item, point to the word. he can do it, but it takes a really long time. It's inaccurate, so sometimes he hits the wrong word, then he has to go and erase it. Imagine if you were trying to write a paper and every few words you wrote the wrong word and you had to go back. So that's one thing. The second thing is his toes do help him. He's more accurate with his toes, but he's told me that's not really going to work in the real world. It's to have your shoes off and working a communication device sitting on the floor. It's just not going to work for him. So let's say someone is born into a family that has a lot of resources. Let's say they have really good health insurance. Let's say they have extra money to buy, equipment. Let's say they have a car because they can drive. Eric's situation is different because he's been displaced from his African home. His mother is in a place where her community resources cannot be tapped into. They're somewhere else. She is sort of reinventing her world and who she depends on, and America is very different than Africa. The systems in America are more complex. We don't take care of each other the same way. We don't look after each other's children or give each other rides very often. We're more structured and much more of a pay-for-service kind of mentality. Also, we have very high standards. We want people to sit in wheelchairs. We want them to have powered mobility. We want them to have braces and medications, whereas in Africa there might have been less expectations for medical care, but maybe just as rich of a existence because people may have been in his life more than social service agencies.
So why help Eric? Who should? What's to gain?
It's funny, I just kind of wrote a little statement about that of, who deserves help, who deserves to come to America and who deserves to be left behind. These are really, really hard moral questions. Why help one African boy to move up the ladder a little bit or be more comfortable? And honestly, the one thing I say to myself all the time is Eric is me, Eric is you, Eric is anyone that gets displaced, that might be in a war, that might be in a hurricane, that might be in a flood, where they lose everything and they have to start over again. What would we want for ourselves, and how would we want to be cared for? So I don't try to make an example of myself, but what I realize is that when people see me helping, they want to help too. Because I'm not being paid, I'm a volunteer, I'm a friend. And it inspires people to do more.